Looking back to our own shores now, and I want to talk about government spending, because we need to look at that. A report issued by the Public Accounts Committee has found that governments risked and lost unacceptable billions of taxpayers' money in its COVID response. And it cites the furlough scheme, which is estimated to have lost $5.3 billion to fraud and error. And it was also revealed that the huge $8.7 billion was spent on PPE, and that was written off. So if you add that up together, that's actually more than they're actually asking for us with the national insurance hike that is coming in April. So I'm asking, if the government and the NHS is spending healthcare money wisely, what do you think? Are they doing that? So joining me to discuss this is Danielle Boxall, who's the spokesperson for the Taxpayers Alliance. Danielle, thank you for joining me. So this report, give me a quick summary of your reaction to it. Is it a surprise?
Well, thank you for having me on the show, Nana. And yeah, I have to say, I don't think it is a surprise. I mean, obviously, it was very important that things like the furlough scheme and the bounce back loans were rolled out quickly and without red tape. We were in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of a pandemic, an unprecedented pandemic. And of course, you know, we had to support people in that period. But I don't think it's surprising, really, that the amount of money that was wasted and lost by the government in that period. I mean, the estimate is about £15 billion, but it could be up to about £20 billion. That's a shocking amount of money. I mean, just take the bounce back loan, for example. That's expected to have lost about £4.9 billion, and that's the equivalent of a penny off of income tax, for example. So the amount of money the things that we could do with that amount of money is amazing. And, you know, I really do think that the government must do everything in its power to recoup as much money as possible. The expectation is that they're only going to recoup about £6 million of just the bounce back loan. 6 million,
did you say? 6 million, not billion.
6 million of a £5 billion scheme. So that's about like 0.1% of the total amount lost to fraud, which is shocking. I mean, this is all whilst people were worrying about their jobs, worrying about their businesses, worrying about their health, their families, and these fraudsters were fiddling the system and stealing, quite frankly, taxpayers' money.
I think we do a deal with the government. You recoup at least 80% of that money and we'll allow you to take that national insurance rise. But at the moment, it's disgusting, really, the amount that they've lost. If you could turn back the clock and change the government's response to the pandemic, what one thing would you change? It's a big question, but you've got about a minute.
Yeah, well, I think what they should have done is they should have made it very clear that, you know, they were really going to crack down on people that fiddled the system during, you know, a massive international crisis. And just by doing that, I think would have, you know, prevented some people, because it was clear that there were a lot of, you know, hoops that people could jump through, very easily and take this money, you know, that they shouldn't have.
Well, listen, Danielle, it's really good to talk to you. Thanks for your thoughts. That's Danielle Boxall. She's the spokesperson for the Taxpayers Alliance, and it's interesting to talk to her. Let's get a brief thought from my panel. Claire, what's your view on the government spending when it came to COVID?
I mean, it's as Danielle said, that we needed to make decisions really quickly. The furlough scheme was great. Bounce back loans were a fantastic option for people, but I just think that the due diligence that went into the decision-making wasn't there. And you look at the COVID bounce-back loans that were given to companies who had ceased trading, were already in a poor financial state that shouldn't have received it, and they've just written that money off, and I find that appalling.
I'm so annoyed with myself.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people think that.
What do you think, Lawrence?
I think it's, usual corrupt government cronyism. I'm more worried about where are we now, at half a billion? No, more, sorry, 500 billion quid of our currency has been diluted, and record and soaring inflation that's going to come and destroy people in a time of a cost of living crisis.
So all exciting then, all good stuff.
With net zero, net zero on top of it.
Net zero. Let's just remind us what net zero actually means. That is the sum in your bank account after all this has gone down. Well, a spokesperson for the Treasury said, "We reject the claims made in this report. No fraudulent payments have been written off, and the Taxpayer Protection Task Force is expected to recover up to £1 billion, is that all, from fraudulent or incorrect payments. Our COVID support schemes were rolled out at a time of national crisis, protecting millions of jobs and businesses when they needed it most. Thanks to the speed and scale of our intervention, the economy is back to pre-pandemic levels and growing at the fastest rate in the G7. The cost of inaction could have had a catastrophic impact on jobs and livelihoods."